This is called The Number You Have Dialed. Melissa Pierce received a phone call from her son Brian on a bright and sunny Friday afternoon. Melissa Pierce's son Brian had been dead for the last 5 years. She remembered well the night that Brian passed. She could replay every moment, down to the syllables set by her family, friends, doctors, and nurses. It haunted her dreams wherever she slept, and even crept into her thoughts when she was awake. It all started, innocently enough, with a small argument between herself and her son. "Mom, for God's sake, I'm 17 years old. I'm nearly done with high school." "I don't care how old you are, Brian. You can live to be 100. But I'm still going to tell you that you cannot go to this party," she uttered back, calmly but firmly. It was a birthday party that Brian's friend Mary was throwing. Brian assured Melissa that the party was being held in the neighborhood. But once Mary needled the address out of him, one quick search of it showed it wasn't in a good part of town. It also didn't help that some of Mary's friends, who Brian knew by proxy, were a rowdy, often dangerous bunch. "Mom, this is Mary we're talking about. You know Mary. I've been friends with her since elementary school. I can't miss her birthday. Besides, it's only going to be a small handful of people there. We're going to have pizza, watch a few movies, have birthday cake, then boom, we're done." Melissa sighed and shook her head. Brian wasn't a baby anymore, but that didn't mean she was disqualified from putting her foot down. "Brian, I've seen what those so-called friends of hers do. They drink, they smoke, they drive like maniacs on the road, they fight. I'm sorry, but my mind is made up. I like Mary, I really do, but I do not want you at this party. Call Mary and apologize, and tell her you two can hang out sometime next week." Now, normally this would be the point of the argument where Brian would roll his eyes, sigh, and, with a hint of annoyance and a pinch of anger, would acquiesce to his mother's demands. The key word being normally. "I'm going to the party. And if you don't like it, then tough." Melissa narrowed her eyes at her son. "You want to try that again?" Whenever Melissa would say that, that was usually the signal to Brian that he had better change around what he said, and quickly. "I'm going to that party." Melissa had it. She calmly but firmly walked past Brian and towards a bowl filled with car keys belonging to her car, her husband's car, and Brian's car. "It'll be awfully difficult for you to go, I think," Melissa began, slowly snatching Brian's car keys and pocketing them, "without a car to drive in." Brian angrily began to unleash a string of curses at Melissa, words that would make even the most sailor mouths blush. Melissa was getting upset, but she knew she had to keep calm to keep the upper hand. "Keep up that talk, Brian, and you'll not only be vehicleless for this party, but you'll be vehicleless for weeks to come. Just try me and see what happens." "God, I hate you so much sometimes," Brian snarled, stopping off to his room as he did. "I'll find a way to that party. Not having a car won't stop me. You'll see." "Yeah, good luck with that, Brian. Now that you've told me your master plan, I'll know to pay attention to what you're doing." She tried. She truly did. But she could only hover over him, watch him like a hawk, for so long. Soon, night came, and Melissa's body was just so tired. She went to bed. And Brian went out. Snuck out his window and hopped into a car driven by two of Mary's rowdy friends. Melissa never did catch their names, even when they were all printed in the obituaries days later. The car never even made it to the party. On the highway, a huge accident occurred. One car slammed into the back of another, and the first car ricocheted into a ditch and was completely destroyed, engulfed in flames. The people who were hit, a young married couple, escaped with bumps and bruises. The car that hit them, on the other hand, was not as fortunate. Doctors assured Melissa that Brian had died on the impact from the crash, and he didn't suffer. That did little to ease Melissa's mind. At the funeral, Family and friends mused that, at the very least, no one would have to see Brian's charred body, for Melissa and her husband demanded a closed casket. That, too, did little to help Melissa. Neither did the fact that, in a way, Melissa blamed herself for Brian's death. No matter how many people assured her, "Melissa, no, come now. You weren't the one driving. You didn't make that traffic flow the way it did last night." And no matter how many times Melissa would nod and say, "Oh yes, of course, you're right," she still felt, in a way, that the fault lay at her feet. She was the one who said he couldn't go to the party. She was the one who argued with him, the one who made him mad enough to sneak off. If only she had just let him drive himself. If only she hadn't upset him. If only. If only. 5 years had come and gone, and the wounds were still fresh in Melissa's mind. Her husband, Bobby, was a comfort to her, as was her friends and family, but she warned them, even in those first few days, "I don't think I'll ever be better. I'll do my best to carry on, but I'm not going to be the same." That Friday, almost near the 5-year anniversary of the accident, Melissa was sitting in her kitchen table, reading from a newspaper, trying to get her mind off things, when suddenly, her cell phone began to ring. Melissa, as she always did, lazily lifted the phone up from the table and looked at the caller ID. Sonny Boy. That was the name she had put for Brian in his caller ID, whenever he would call her. Melissa had to blink a few times. Blink to make sure she wasn't seeing things. This couldn't be. It simply couldn't. Melissa, almost out of impulse, hit the deny call button and placed her phone down, then stood up to collect herself. Surely she was imagining that. Surely someone else was calling, right? Bzzz, bzzz, bzzz. Melissa crept towards her phone and lifted it up. She looked at the caller ID again. Sonny Boy. Slowly, Melissa pressed on the accept call button and moved the phone to her ear. Hello? Mom? I don't know who the hell this is, or if this is some kind of sick joke to you, but my son Brian is dead. Now, if you call again, I will call the cops. Mom, it's Brian. Don't hang up, please. I just need to talk to you. Look, Buster, I don't ask for much in this world, but what I do want is for you to hang up. I will not sit here and listen to some little punk, wannabe prankster pretending to be my son. Now, goodbye. Melissa went to hit her finger to the end call button. Fuzzy Wilkins! A beat. A long beat. Melissa hesitated and slowly put the phone back to her ear. Excuse me? Fuzzy Wilkins. He was my imaginary friend, remember? You were the only one I told about him, back when I was 6. I was afraid people would make fun of me if I told them. Not you. You I loved. You I trusted. I knew you'd never judge me. Melissa had never told a soul about Fuzzy Wilkins. Brian never had the courage to tell anyone, even his best friends, about it. Brian? Here, Mom. Tears flooded Melissa's eyes. She began to cry. She couldn't help herself. She knew this was unbelievable, beyond her comprehension, but to hear Brian's voice again after 5 years. Mom, don't cry. Please don't cry. Oh, Brian. Brian, my God, it's you. But how are you calling me? Never mind that. I've been trying to get a message to you for 5 years, Mom. And now that I've got you on the phone, I can tell you. Mom, it's not your fault. It was my fault. Brian, it wasn't your fault either. No, it was. I was being a brat. I was being stubborn. I should have listened to you, Mom. Jerry and Steve, the guys who picked me up that night, were already drunk when I jumped into their car. I had a really bad feeling from the moment I saw them, but I was too damn stubborn. I wanted to be defiant, I didn't think. It's my fault it happened. Melissa put her free hand to her face, trying to wipe her tears away. She wanted to speak, wanted to reach through the phone and hug her son as tight as she could, but the emotions were too much to bear. Mom, just know that I'm sorry. I never should have said that I hated you. Never should have snuck out. Never should have disobeyed you. Tell me you forgive me. I'll feel better if you tell me you forgive me. Melissa, through her small sobs, managed to choke out a small, weak, whispered, I forgive you, Brian. Thank you. Listen, I need to get going. I don't have much time left. I love you, Mom. Tell Dad I love him, too. Brian, no. Don't hang up. I have to, Mom. I can't tie up the line. Brian, Melissa choked out a few sobs, then composed herself enough to continue. Oh, God, you had so much in life to look forward to. You were going to college. You got good grades. The baseball scouts were hounding you day and night. What could have been? I know, Mom, I know. But I'm okay now. I'm in a better place. And I want you and your mind to be in a better one, too. You were the greatest mom a kid could ask for. Remember that. I really gotta go now. Goodbye, Mom. Before Melissa could utter a sound, the line clicked on Brian's end. Melissa sat stunned in her chair as she stared at her phone screen. Call ended. Frantically, she hit the redial button, hoping to catch Brian before he went back to whatever, or wherever he was. Alas, all that Melissa heard was, We're sorry. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. Melissa cursed out loud as she frantically went to her call history, but Brian's name, Sonny Boy, did not appear. Letting out an angered cry, Melissa went to throw her phone across the room, but at the last moment, she stopped herself. Slowly, she let the events of the last 2 minutes wash over her. Was it inner peace? Relief? Even happiness? Whatever it was, it slowly washed over her, and she found herself smiling through her tears. Yes, Brian was okay now. And their last conversation was no longer an argument. No longer had been ended by a I hate you statement from her son. It would all be okay now. The hole in her heart would still be there, of course, but at least it was a little bit smaller. Thank you for the call, Brian, Melissa slowly said, out loud after what seemed like an eternity. Please say hi to Fuzzy for me, won't you?